Well, thank you so much, Ishita, Rohit. Thank you for joining us here today. It's a
Glad to
pleasure
be
to have
here.
you. Have some water if you're interested. There you go.
Hey, it's working. Hello?
Oh, it's working. Test, test. Yep. So with so much of the conversation today being focused around shifting consumer behavior, tighter marketing budgets, it's never been more important to understand your audience. So for the purpose of the conversation today, we're going to dive deeper into the partnership between the Trade Desk and Loblaw and how it helped Kenvue to supercharge their campaigns. To kick it off, I'd like to start with you, Rohit.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through a little bit of the foundation of the Loblaw audiences? Tell
Right.
us a little bit more about where the data comes from, the richness of the first-party audiences, and across the different banners and categories that it spans.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we're fortunate as Loblaw to have a very strong presence in the Canadian market. And I think, we always talk about that we are within 10 minutes drive of 90% of the Canadians. But it's not just about reach from an access perspective. We have one of the strongest loyalty programs in the country. And what that enables us to do is to really see who these consumers are that are trying to find products that resonate with them. As JJ, you mentioned earlier on, we have many different grocery banners, which is one part. We also have multicultural presence through TNT. We have, pharmacy and beauty products at Shoppers Drug Mart. We also have banking services through PC Financial, and they're all linked with the PC Optimum loyalty program. And so when you think about the daily usage of essential services, we are there everywhere. And because of that, the reward program that we have that's going on enables those consumers to always scan their PC Optimum app. Our scan rates within our store network is also very high. And obviously, when you're online and digitally engaged with us through our PC Optimum app or our PC Express online grocery or shoppersdrugmart.ca, we also are able to understand what are some of the things that you're interested in from a search or other perspective. And so by combining all of this information together, we're able to generate a large amount of insights on who the consumer is, what are they looking for at any given point in time, and sort of bring the right set of information in front of them. And so, when you think about Loblaw holistically, across the reach and the insights that we are able to generate through that combination is pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Turning to you, Ishita, I'd love to hear kind of your take as one of the early adopters of this partnership. What caused Kenvue to lean in to getting audiences from the largest retailer in Canada?
For context, JJ, first of all, so nice to be here with everyone today. If you think about a CPG organization, one of the things we can probably bond over a glass of wine is that we don't have direct-to-consumer businesses many times in Canada. Challenge, right? And so we have to rely on others to get that information. That's point number one. Point number two, just from a Canadian context, it is really challenging to get audience insights. Because of the data silos that you were just talking about, information is often panel data or outdated, but also the changing demographics, right? Like if you think about the diversity, how immigration rates are changing, how quickly it impacts how real and relevant the data is. And so that's a bit of the Canadian lens. I think it's always important to remember why data that Loblaw's offers is so critically important. But if I think about Kenvue and why we partner with massive retailers like Loblaw's in the get-go, first, we understand the power of purchase-based audience data and the real-time impact it can have on behavior and insights. It is the blueprint of actually driving reach, and as my team would say, incremental reach. And so we've got to be able to leverage this data, be able to capture our new category buyers. Number two, I think retail media has a competitive advantage over everyone else. It's a combination of precision-based targeting, which is connected to the short-term sales impact, and being able to measure those sales in a short attribution window is so, so critical. And so that's another sort of piece that is really important. And thirdly, I think at Kenvue, we think of experiments as our new business cases. That's what we need to do. We need to be able, data and measurement is available to us so quickly as marketers, and we need to be able to capitalize on that really quickly. And so you've got to leverage business experiments as business cases, and that's what we're really proud of at Kenvue.
I love that. I think you summed that up really nicely, especially from the CPG lens in terms of why it's important too. I think it's very clear in terms of how you see the importance of it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you could learn from the first, some of the key learnings from the first partnership and the first execution that we had together?
Yes, absolutely. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, maybe I'll talk a little bit culturally. What we've done as a team is created a bit of a psychologically safe place to learn because experiments and things like this, it's not about the best results. It's about allowing teams to fail, learn, and iterate. So it's more important what we get from a failure than a win. But with that said, I will say that we had great ROAS results. And shout out to the team that executed at Kenvue and Loblaws. We did have a positive ROAS of over $1.30, and it actually had halo impact on not our core codes, but also our non-core codes. So that is really, really impactful. So that's the ROAS piece. But also, the most important part is what did we learn about our consumers? So this test was done with Tylenol, and Tylenol. The two segments that we defined were those who buy us or who haven't bought us in a long time and those who don't buy us at all. So those were our two segments. So what did we learn? First, outside of the ROAS, that lapsed users actually had the highest conversion rate. So that's number one. Number two, competitive targeting actually was a really effective driver in driving new customer acquisition. And third, interestingly, we had no impact on existing brand users, which also actually was a really interesting insight. So as we think about moving forward and what do we want to do next, first, a really critical learning that I hope I can share with everyone today, and you'll take this away. We did not actually change the creative and the messaging by audience segment. Yeah. Now, as a marketer, I'm looking at that and thinking about that. Wow, we should have done that, but we learned so much by not doing it, actually. So you can think about these audiences and their motivators are actually so different. So if you think about Tylenol, a competitive buyer is buying Advil, and they're thinking about that as their back pain solution. They don't think of Tylenol that way. But imagine if we serve them up with a specific ad that talked about, hey, you just had a snowstorm. Take Tylenol and it does XYZ. That is a perfect way to intercept a competitive user, but not as great for someone that buys us or who hasn't bought us in a long time. So that's one piece. So those were all the learnings that we got, and we look forward to really scaling that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love hearing the insights around creative, but also how initially running with the same creative actually caused you to find the insight that
Exactly.
led to the powerful insight that you generated, and the combination of understanding that this perhaps wasn't right for one audience segment, but it worked very well for others, I think is a great learning. Rohit, I'll pass it over to you. How do you kind of direct brands like Kenvue to think about measurement? What are some of the key metrics that you tend to, and approaches you tend to focus on?
Yeah, and I think, Ishita, you mentioned this very well, which is it's very important to start with what's the end objective that you're trying to accomplish. And I think everybody thinks about it. It's just that when it comes down to execution, sometimes we rely very heavily on our past learnings of things that have worked well versus trying to explore new ways. And you mentioned experimentation as a business case. It's like, are there other things that we could do differently to learn from it? And so, starting off with an objective could determine what types of KPIs do you want to optimize for or go towards. And definitely ROAS can be one of them, but there could be other types, which is, hey, I want to go after a competitive shopper with two different creatives and see which one resonates more. Or it could be, I want to do the existing brand buyers, but see if I can increase their consumption on certain types of moments and what sort of creative or offer works well. Once we know that, I think to your point, JJ, if you leverage Trade Desk and our audiences, there are certain set of metrics that Trade Desk will provide you. How do you go deeper in terms of expanding that into insights that you can uncover for your business that you can apply more broadly is how we also try to go in and help the brands. And so, Ishita, you mentioned this as well, which is if you had those two segments, what was the behavior that was exhibited by each of those two segments and why was it different? Was there a greater propensity for one of those segments to, let's say, come online versus go inside the store? Mm-hmm. Was there a day of the week that created a difference? Was there an offer placement that created a difference? Because of the fact that we have the PC Optimum scanning that's happening at different positions, we know exactly who we served the ad to at what time and where, and therefore we can track their behaviors before and after, right? And that's very powerful from an insight generation perspective.
Yeah. I mentioned in the presentation that there's a single major player that captures 80% of the retail media revenue in Canada today. I'd love to hear both your perspectives on how you think about allocating budget in order to drive the most efficient strategy. And Rohit, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, and I always say that people optimize for what's available to them, right? And so,
Right.
Credit to the retailer that you're talking about. I think they've done a great job on the e-commerce side to be able to provide the level of insight and optimization that they do. And as you said, the primary channel that they optimize towards is e-commerce, right? Now, we are a retailer that has both physical and digital presence. And I would say, I'd be the first one to say that I think, our in-store data and ability to create insights out of that was probably not as mature as it was. And I think that's changing. We are investing very heavily in terms of creating capabilities that gives you that full view of this consumer, as well as their 90% transactions that are happening in store and the 10% that are happening, within our digital property, plus everything that's happening offsite, through Trade Desk. And so, as more options become available, then you got to start to think about how do you optimize for your true sales channel, which channel is driving how much, and how do you sort of see what the consumer behavior is between them. And so to me, I think the time is now to sort of step back and reevaluate where you're spending those dollars. And I would actually take Ishita's point as well, which is around, if you don't experiment, you will not know if something else could perform better.
Yeah.
And so, step one is create the psychological safety, create the budgets, try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, come talk to us and we'll make it work. So.
I mean,
I'm glad you make it safe.
Ishita, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you
Sure.
guys sort of think strategically about allocating your budgets.
The first thing I'll admit is I've been in this space for a few years now, and even my team would probably say there's probably no perfect blueprint. It's a bit of the science, right?
Yeah.
And the data-informed decisions we want to make. But it's got to start with the art of strategy. And so a couple of things as we reflect. Number one, you've got to fundamentally know your consumers and how they're making that purchase. And so just building on Rohit's point, if you think about Tylenol, it's what we call a distress purchase. You're not usually planning on buying that. You're usually buying it when you need it, especially if it's for your child or it's something specific. So that means I got to plan my retail media strategy and investment in a different way in channels that matter. So Shoppers Drug Mart, critical. Convenience, located within 10 minutes. So I feel like you got to start with the consumer and not just make sort of random, erratic choices about where you're going to measure. I think the second thing that we believe, and my team has really taught me this, is that, ad diversification or spend diversification is really, really, really important because it actually can help you to optimize your budgets, but also expand reach. So as an example, you might make the choice to focus on fewer, bigger, high traffic platforms, but it is also very sound to actually take those dollars and some of those dollars and spread it across multiple smaller platforms because that allows you to effectively reach niche audiences. And that's what gets you to incrementality. And so I think those 2 points actually, help drive kind of where we go with our strategy and investment.
Do you see that strategy evolving, you think, over time? And have you seen it evolve since you've been working at Kenvue? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I think we've made such a concerted effort to spend in this area to be able to learn. And because we're learning quickly, we're able to scale more quickly because we're bringing people along on the journey. And we can talk about that too.
Another kind of evolution, I alluded to this in the presentation, is the shift from kind of lower funnel focus for retail media to upper funnel. While we're with you, Ishita, I'd love to hear kind of your take on how you see retail data and retail media playing in a role in the upper funnel campaigns.
Sure. Maybe I'll start again. I'm going to start with the consumer. A consumer doesn't know if they're looking at an upper or lower funnel ad, guys. We know that, but they don't know that. So what does that mean? What matters is knowing and understanding that moment that you're going to reach them in, whether it's in the app, and understanding that moment and actually not letting that moment go to waste. So did you serve them the right creative and message that's going to convert them? Are they connecting a dot to something else they saw in a brand campaign that actually is outside the platform, and you're connecting the dot because it's all additive. It's not by itself. And so that drives message recall, which is really important as a brand marketer. And so you've got to look at it a little bit holistically, I would say, because it's not it's not in and of itself. I think the other thing, the industry, and this is maybe a message to the industry, we've got to also continue to evolve the formats that we provide, right? I think to be able to brand build, you've got to have assets that actually allow you to tell your brand story and drive impact, and maybe walk a little bit away from just looking at efficient reach, CPMs, and drive more impact through the retail media channels, because I do think it has an opportunity to do that for sure.
When you say look at it holistically, would you say taking down the silos maybe is something? Yeah, that's it. I want to pivot to another question, Rohit. We're running out of time here, so I wanted to touch a little bit upon the opportunity for non-endemic. So specifically for our data in the US, we see that 53% of the advertisers that leverage retail audiences through the trade desk in the US are non-endemic. Can you speak a little bit to why an auto, a telco brand, a travel brand might want to leverage the Loblaw audiences?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll actually answer maybe that and the one that you did before, because I think they're tied together. Ishita said it all starts with the consumer. Every consumer, and you can think about yourself too, you're not siloed in your thinking about, hey, today I'm a car buyer and tomorrow I'm a grocery buyer. Like, I mean, you have both cars and groceries that you think about. And they're all connected, right? Like you took an insurance example. You might buy an insurance because you're buying a home, and because you're buying a home, you might need more groceries or you might need another car. Yeah. And you start to connect those dots together, and you start to find that, hey, today I might be getting audiences based on, a seed audience, right? So you get a seed audience and then you expand that into a population. That's almost doing the same thing as saying, hey, between the three of us, we'll just like merge all of us together and squish us and say, okay, this is the one person that you got to serve this ad to. Versus through our audiences, you can say, I want someone that is in the market for Tylenol because, maybe they have a sick child and I got to do something else for them as well. And so it just makes your targeting that much more precision-based because it's actual transactions. And then the second side of it, which is also very, very interesting, is around the brand building piece. So if you think about it, not only do we have access to these consumers through our sites, we can also conduct surveys for them. And this isn't a panel anymore that is randomized. It's an actual intent-based audiences that have exhibited a certain behavior. So when we serve up your brand building creative, let's say, we can also go back and resurvey those consumers exactly because we know who they were. And I think that becomes very powerful for non-endemic.
How would you think about measurement in that scenario then? Because it's different than with an endemic where you're looking at a closed loop measurement. Yeah. So how would you think about measurement for the non-endemic?
Yeah, 100%. So, and I'll go back to the objective, right? So if the objective was, let's say, to say, did I build awareness amongst a cohort of customers that do this on the grocery transaction side? Service could be one way of doing it. Did I get a brand lift? Service could be another way of doing it. We could also, and we are exploring right now, clean room services. So it's fine that we may not have the end transaction data, but if you were willing to bring that into a clean room, we can bring our data into the clean room and match it. And then you can start to get more of the ROAS, related components. And so, I'll take it back to, if you have a given objective, leverage us because we know the consumers, we have the insights, and we have the reach. And we can come up with better methods of making it great.
Well said. We're running out of time here. Ishita, I want to give you the last word. If there's marketers in the room who are interested in testing out and are sort of excited by what they've heard from some of your learnings, any insights or any sort of tips or tricks that you could offer to them?
Sounds good. Maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but I think centralization of resources and investment to be able to do this actually is better than going what I call tin cupping or tin cupping brand by brand. Centralization allows you to move quickly. So I think that's one. Number two, be deliberate in building one or two strategic relationships with partners like Loblaw's. I think that's really important for a couple of reasons. As this market is still in its infancy, it allows clients like us to be at the table, to shape new offerings, to provide learnings, but also build joint plans about the learning agenda, because that's going to lead to win-win situations both for the retailer and the CPG partner on the other side. So those are 2 quick tips.
Thank you. That's great.
No
Ishita, Rohit, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for
It's been
having
an
us.
absolute pleasure.